Hello, this is Attila Agrinaj, and I'm going to talk about derived metrics for the game of Go. So, well, probably I don't need to introduce the game of Go. It's an ancient game, and it's very well known in Asia, and it's actually a turning point in modern history because in 2016 there was the famous AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol match, which was won by the computer. So it's like everyone knows this. However, what happened after the event is actually more revolutionary. So the technology became widely available. Now all you need is just a standard PC, or even it's just a good smartphone would do in order to have superhuman Go knowledge accessible. And it's like in 2020 you don't even need those devices. If you just play online, you get an AI analysis for free and immediately. Okay, so well, that's the starting point. We have these Go playing AIs that are superhuman, and they are widely available now. So how can we use them? Well, we could play against them, but since they are superhuman, this is a rather frustrating experience. So it's actually a lot better to use them for analysis when we play our games and we want to review the game. Well, we can just use the AI for that purpose. Unfortunately, exactly the same way people can cheat in online play as well, using the AIs for finding the next good move. And that's actually the starting point of our research project. So here we can see an interface of an analysis tool that can help to get information from a deep learning Go AI. And well, it's all nice and visual. You will have the winning chances displayed for particular moves, and you see sort of the changes caused by each move. So this is how it looks like to have an analysis tool. Okay, so what we try to do with the idea of that, well, we would like to sort of assess performance of players, sort of a high resolution move by move, in order to figure out the probability of a player cheating. So there are some basic measures provided by the AI engines themselves, and one is the visit count. It's just how many times a move is considered by the search algorithm, by a Monte Carlo tree search algorithm. And this is actually a good proxy, or it actually can be used to define the value function, which gives for each board position, give you the chance of winning. How good is that board position? The win rate, this value function tells that. But newer AIs, for example, like Katago, they also give another information. They can give this estimated final score, the score lead, and that's that is a slightly more useful measure, because you might have 95% chance of winning, but you might have just 2 points difference, or you might have 20 points difference, and that's a different chance for winning or making mistakes. Okay, so based on these basic measures, we defined first the effect, which is just the difference in the score lead due to a move. Okay, so there is some estimate for the final score, a given board position, then a move is made, and then we take the estimate again, and the difference of these two. It's quite a natural idea. And it turns out that this is quite a reliable and stable prediction about the outcome of the game. So the one question might be, why do we trust this? For example, Katago, because that's just you know, it's a probabilistic measure anyway, coming from a neural network. But it turns out that we did a couple of experiments where we tried to get the AI to play, to do self-play, but it's with long thinking time, and it's very reliably could tie with itself. Okay, so it's like it estimates that the estimated score is 0, and then 100 moves later it's actually 0, it's a tie. So that gives some, you know, circumstantial evidence for this. The other thing we had is that this sort of came from the thinking about, oh, what is a sort of the characteristic of AI play, and they play in a very consistent way. And as the natural question arises that, well, how far are we from perfect play? So for that purpose, we defined the search gaps, which I'm going to talk about, and then my collaborator will talk about the certain statistics based on the effect used to detect the possible cheating. Okay, so what are these search gaps? This is a rough analogy. So we have the raw output of the neural network, that's the raw policy, and that corresponds to intuition. It's like human looking at the board and it's like, okay, well, this feels like a good move. While the search algorithm is sort of the step-by-step logical thinking, just like when a human being is like, after the first intuition, start thinking that, while evaluating the position in a more verbal, more explicit way. So the underlying idea is that if the neural network is actually close to perfect play, which everyone agrees that we are not there yet, then the actual search will not add too much value to the original intuition. Okay, so we wanted to measure that. So how good is the intuition of the neural network? And one very rough but very straightforward measure is the hit rate. So how many times does the network come up with a move that is still the best after extensive search? So the search will not change the actual decision. Okay, so that's the hit rate. And if you want to sort of refine that, that's a good candidate is a Kullback-Leibler divergence, which is used for comparing probability distributions. Okay, so we don't just ask the question whether we hit the best move after the search, or we actually, the network changes, but the search changes the predicted best move. We don't just ask for that, but we sort of try to compare the probability distributions. So the raw probability distribution and the refined the policy after that. This, of course, requires some thinking that, well, because there are some, you know, illegal moves, and the KL divergence doesn't work with 0 entries. So, well, we have to choose that. Okay, so we are talking about the top 10 moves and the probability distributions for that. But okay, here are some experimental results for the hit rate. So what we did, we looked at category networks, and we have the small network with 20 blocks and the bigger one with 40 blocks. And we looked at the network from the beginning of the training process and the final one, which was declared to be final in the summer of 2020. And we just calculated the hit rate after 100,000 visits in the search. And it turns out that while it's sort of fairly reliable, it's like we looked at 3 professional games. One is a historic game, and 2 more recent. And it turns out that, yeah, sure, the final networks, they have better hit rates, and also the bigger network has better hit rates compared to the smaller one. However, we looked at sort of an amateur game as well, and strangely, the sort of the early network has better hit rate for this amateur game. So it's sort of hinting that what's going on here might be that actually the early stage is actually closer to the early stage of the human learning as well. So then what we did with the information theoretic measure, the KL divergence, we looked at then, okay, let's just look at a single position. That's the famous the position before the famous move 37 in the AlphaGo Lee Sedol match, and just try to measure the disparity between the raw policy and the refined one after a certain number of visits, so a certain number of steps in the search. And it turns out if you just do a few visits, then while this distance is relatively high, it's probably because, well, that's where the Monte Carlo tree search is kicking in. It's like, well, it's no established information yet, so it can try many different ideas. And after that, we see the distances actually get smaller, but then again it grows. It's probably as the search discovers more and more possible different ways to play. And then, well, that's also the question about what's the network size? How does this influence that? And we looked at random positions taken from strong down-level amateur games, and well, it seems that at least for these games, there is a difference. The bigger network has slightly better performance in the sense that the KL divergence is smaller. So the intuition of the larger network is actually better than the smaller one. Okay, so these are just, you know, exploratory ideas to look at, and of course what we need to do next is to go through different kinds of games and see how these measures behave.
Hello, I am Antti Törmänen, a professional Go player at the Japan Go Association. In the following, I will explain how we applied some derived metrics for the game of Go in cheat detection. The Go world is right now in a similar situation as the chess world was 20 years ago, when the chess AI Deep Blue first defeated world champion Garry Kasparov. Afterwards, superhuman chess AIs gradually became available for everybody. This was great news to anybody who wanted to study the game, but at the same time it created a new problem. People started using chess AIs to cheat in online games and tournaments. Recently, The Guardian published an article titled "Chess's Cheating Crisis. Paranoia has become the culture." Chess AIs are now so common that everybody has access to them. This has resulted in an increasing amount of online cheating. In Go, the world champion was first defeated by an AI in 2016. Now the Go world is quickly heading in the same direction as chess, with online cheating gradually becoming more rampant. Here are a few examples of the bad consequences of online cheating. Firstly, cheating upsets the ranking systems of online Go servers, letting players win more often than they should. Secondly, cheating makes fair online competitions difficult to hold, as players are incentivized to cheat if there are prizes at stake. Thirdly, cheating affects everybody's playing experience, as because of your opponent's cheating, you will not have had a real chance to win the game. Last year I started noting that an increasing number of my online opponents had started cheating. I got intrigued by the fact that I was usually able to tell whether my opponent was consulting an AI or not. I then started researching if my gut feelings could be utilized in creating an anti-cheating algorithm. There are roughly 4 different ways I get clues on my opponent's cheating. 1. The opponent's time usage is strange. They may think too little for complicated moves and too much for easy moves. 2. The opponent plays in a style common to AIs. 3. Go AIs start playing very defensively when they are leading the game. A human's and AI's defensive play look very different, and this is one of the best ways to tell a human from an AI. 4. A Go AI's play often looks inconsistent to an experienced human's eyes, because it is not based on planning like human play is. For a proper anti-cheating algorithm, we need quantitative metrics for measuring a player's similarity with an AI. We used a Go AI called Katago to extract various kinds of data from played games and then analyze that data for patterns. Firstly, we found how defensive play when ahead shows in the player's winning percentage or win rate. A win rate graph looks like something like this. This game was very straightforward, with Black's winning percentage quickly going from roughly 50% at move 1 to 1% at move 85. The suspicious part is after move 85, when the win rate stays very stable. We have found that even the best human players cannot play this solidly, and therefore the white player is probably cheating. Secondly, Katago is able to extract very useful territory-related data, which can be used in cheat detection. This is what a game of Go might look like in its later stages. Katago can evaluate the board as shown here on the right side, marking intersections as black or white, depending on whose territory they will likely end up as. In Go, whoever has more of this kind of territory in the end wins the game. More importantly to us, Katago can estimate these territories even in earlier parts of the game, such as here. We can use this territory-related data to quantitatively measure how well a player played in a particular game. This graph shows how the two players' average mistakes developed throughout the game. If you compare the distance of Black's and White's values, you notice that Black's numbers are less than half that of White's. Black made considerably fewer and smaller mistakes than White, and we can therefore call his play better. This is not necessarily proof of Black's having cheated, but we can say that this Black player is more skilled than White. Thirdly, we can simply evaluate how similarly a player played compared to our AI. Here we have the board position from before. The AI has a number of moves that it considers, shown with the green circles on this board. The darker the green, the better the AI evaluates that move. We can get this information at all points of the game. Consequently, we can track how similar a player's play was to the AI's. This graph shows how a player's moves during a game compared to the AI's. The blue line shows the AI's best move option, and the orange and green lines show the AI's average and median choices. The red line shows the player's chosen move. The closer that the red line is to the blue line, the better the player played, and the more likely that they used an AI. It was roughly at move 85 in this game that White's winning percentage reached 99%. After this point, White's play is considerably worse than in the first half of the game, as shown by the distance between the blue and red lines. This suboptimal safe play further increases the likelihood of White's having cheated. This is the current state-of-the-art of cheat detection in Go. Currently, we depend on a combination of quantitative analysis and experts' gut feelings, as shown. Online chess servers have automatic cheat detection mechanisms that, however, are not completely reliable. For instance, they have been tested on chess games played before strong AIs. From time to time, the program will claim that the player cheated when it was literally impossible. Lastly, we should note that there is no way to be sure whether a player cheated or not besides the player confessing. The question in cheat prevention is always how much work is appropriate. In serious online tournaments, it can make sense to even force the players to do a camera recording of their play, but in regular online play with no prizes, this is too much. The solution should always be fit to the use case.